There is a mystery whispered across centuries, a secret that hides in plain sight. When you need nothing, everything comes. At first, it strikes the mind as impossible, even cruel. How can abundance arise from emptiness? How can the fullness of life pour itself into hands that are no longer grasping? Yet, this is the paradox at the heart of every great teaching, from desert prophets to forest mystics, from the words of sages carved into stone to the silent gestures of monks who spoke through stillness. Emptiness is not absence. It is a fertile silence, a vast clearing where the universe bends down to pour its hidden treasures. Picture a lake at dawn. Its surface is perfectly still, mirroring the sky in flawless symmetry. The soft pink of the clouds, the delicate light of a rising sun, every detail reflected as though the heavens had come down to rest upon the water. This serenity is not achieved through effort. It arises naturally when nothing disturbs the surface. And so it is with the mind. When desire no longer stirs the waters, the world reflects itself in its purest form. Stillness becomes a mirror of infinity, and through this silence, everything is revealed. The ancients knew this truth well. Lao Tzu spoke of it with words as weightless as air. If you want to be full, allow yourself to be empty. If you want everything, surrender everything. In those lines lies a law deeper than any commandment carved on stone, the law of release. To hold tightly is to choke the flow of life. To loosen the hand is to invite the current. And in that release, the paradox breathes. The very moment we stop demanding, the world rushes forward with its offering. Close your eyes, take a breath. Let it settle deep into the body like roots in dark earth. What you are about to enter is not a doctrine, not a cage of beliefs, but an invitation to see differently. A journey into the paradox that freedom lies in surrender, that the richest abundance comes clothed as emptiness. Here, the noise of craving fades, and the silence of truth begins to speak. It does not speak in arguments or proofs. It speaks like the desert wind moving through the dunes. It whispers, "Need nothing. Receive everything." The stage is set, the curtain lifted. Let us step together into this mystery, carrying nothing but an open heart, willing to hear what the silence has always been saying. The journey begins now. Imagine a lone traveler crossing a vast desert. The sun is merciless, its heat a hammer against the earth. Each step sinks into sand that burns beneath the feet. His lips are dry, his throat parched, his eyes fixed on the horizon where a shimmering mirage dances, a promise of water, of shade, of relief. He mutters to himself, "Just one more dune. Beyond the next hill, I will find it." And so he trudges on, fueled not by strength, but by the desperate fire of needing. Hour after hour, the desert stretches endlessly. The mirage does not draw closer. It recedes, mocking him with its illusion of nearness. Every step becomes heavier, each breath shallower, and the need for water grows into an obsession that consumes his entire being. He no longer feels the desert wind brushing his skin. He no longer sees the sky's vast canvas, streaked with shifting light. All he sees is the mirage, the phantom of fulfillment just out of reach. This is the fate of desire, to blind us to what already surrounds us, to trap us in a chase that has no end. And yet, what if the traveler stopped? What if, instead of stumbling forward with the last of his strength, he allowed himself to sink into the shade of a dune, to place his burdens on the earth and surrender his endless reaching? In that stillness, something begins to change. the silence of the desert emerges from behind the noise of his desperate thoughts. He hears the whisper of the wind across the sand, feels the faint coolness of evening descending. His eyes, no longer fixed on illusions, begin to see. And then, like a veil lifted, the oasis appears, not far away, but at his feet, waiting patiently all along. This is the truth hidden in plain sight. What we chase flees, what we release flows toward us. The traveler discovers that the oasis was not revealed by striving, but by surrender. The water was always there, invisible only because of his frantic need. In the same way, when we let go of the grasping, life unveils its quiet generosity. The very things we long for, peace, love, clarity, come not when we clutch at them, but when we cease to demand. The Sufi mystic Rumi captured this paradox in words that echo across centuries. When I run after what I think I want, my days are a furnace of anxiety. But if I sit in patience, what I need flows to me without pain. Here lies the lesson of the desert. Desire burns, but stillness refreshes. The chase exhausts, but surrender restores. The traveler needed nothing. And so, at last, he received everything. Surrender is a word often misunderstood. To many, it whispers of defeat, of resignation, of giving up in despair. But true surrender is not collapse. It is liberation. It is the unclenching of a fist that has long been aching from holding too tightly. It is the release of the illusion that we must bend the world to our will. In surrender, we do not lose. We create space for something greater to move through us. Think of clenched hands. They are strong, yes, but closed. Nothing can be placed within them. And yet, when we open our palms, when we release the grasping, the hand becomes a vessel, empty, but ready to receive. So it is with the soul. When we cling to outcomes, relationships, or possessions, we shut ourselves off from the vastness of what life longs to offer. But when we loosen our grip, when we whisper, "I release the need to control," we suddenly feel the flow of existence carrying us. All traditions, in their deepest heart, teach this. Buddhism names attachment as the root of suffering. The Tao speaks of emptiness as the path to fullness. Christian mystics remind us that to be full of things is to be empty of God, and to be empty of things is to be full of God. Meister Eckhart said that the soul is like a vessel. Only when emptied of the clutter of desire can it reflect the divine light. These voices, separated by centuries and cultures, converge upon one truth. The fullness of life is revealed in emptiness. Picture yourself standing before an open field at dawn. No fences, no borders, only boundless expanse. The air is cool, the horizon endless. You are not burdened by expectation. You are not driven by need. In that space, you realize you lack nothing. And because you lack nothing, everything becomes possible. You feel the quiet arrival of peace, the subtle warmth of presence, the gentle stirring of love. These come not as rewards of effort, but as gifts of release. Surrender, then, is not the end of striving, but the beginning of alignment. It is the shift from struggling against the current to floating with the river. It does not mean life will never challenge us, but it means we will meet its challenges with a heart that trusts rather than fears. In surrender, there is no defeat. There is only the discovery that we were never meant to carry the world on our shoulders. We were meant to walk alongside it, open and free. Across ages and continents, mystics have spoken in one voice about the hidden treasure of emptiness. Their languages differ, their metaphors shift, but the essence remains unshaken. To need nothing is to unlock the gates of everything. Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching whispered, "If you want to be given everything, give everything up." Rumi, burning with divine longing, reminded us, "When I run after what I think I want, my days are a furnace. If I sit in patience, what I need flows to me, without pain." Meister Eckhart echoed this in the stone cloisters of medieval Europe. The more we have of the world, the less we have of God. Each of these voices, separated by centuries and cultures, is pointing not toward poverty, but toward abundance, the abundance that comes when desire no longer blinds us. Imagine a vessel brimming with muddy water. Nothing new can enter, nothing pure can be poured in, until it is emptied. Only when it is washed clean does it become capable of receiving the clear spring. Emptiness is not lack, it is readiness. It is the fertile soil in which the seeds of creation may finally take root. In Taoism, this readiness becomes Wu Wei, effortless action, the art of moving in harmony with the universe rather than against it. Nothing is forced, and yet nothing is left undone. In Sufi wisdom, emptiness is the dance of longing and surrender, the music of being drawn silently toward what the soul truly loves. In Buddhism, shunyata, the void, is not a bleak nothingness, but a vibrant openness, a truth that frees us from clinging to illusions. Picture yourself sitting in silence beneath a vast night sky. The stars glitter against the blackness, each one a fragment of eternity. The darkness between them is not empty in the way we fear. It is a canvas, infinite, holding the light. So it is with our own inner emptiness. When we let go, when we dare to release our grip on illusions, the emptiness inside us becomes a sky where countless stars of wisdom, peace, and love can shine. The universality of this teaching is no coincidence. It is the pulse of existence itself, a truth woven into the hidden architecture of life. By emptying ourselves of what is fleeting, we align with what is eternal. By releasing the noise, we begin to hear the silence. And in that silence, all that is real, all that is needed, comes to meet us. The word void often stirs unease, as though it names a place of loss, of nothingness. But the mystics saw something different. They saw the void not as absence, but as the womb of creation, the silent expanse from which all form arises. Like the dark soil that conceals a seed, the void is pregnant with infinite possibility, unseen yet brimming with life. To stand before it is not to face emptiness, but to face the birthplace of everything that is. Lao Tzu spoke of the Tao as a well, used but never used up, filled with infinite possibilities. This is the paradox of the void. It appears barren, yet it is inexhaustible. In stillness, in surrender, the void becomes the field where new beginnings unfold. In Sufi tradition, Rumi called it the strange pull of love, the silent force that draws us toward what is real. In Buddhist teaching, it is shunyata, emptiness that is not hollow, but alive, shimmering with potential. Imagine yourself in a vast, dark chamber, so still you can hear your own heartbeat echo. At first, the darkness feels heavy, disorienting. But as your eyes adjust, you begin to sense movement. Faint sparks of light blooming across the horizon like stars igniting in a new universe. You realize the darkness was never empty. It was alive, waiting, patient. This is the void, not an end, but the threshold of becoming. Every ending passes through this threshold. Every loss, every surrender, every death of an old self leads us here. And each time, the void whispers, "Do not fear me. I am not your loss. I am your renewal." What falls away in its depths does not vanish into nothing. It transforms, returning in new shapes, new forms. As Rumi said, Don't grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form. The void is the silence between breaths, the stillness before dawn, the pause before the symphony begins again. To enter it is to trust that what appears as emptiness is in truth the cradle of life. When we dare to dwell there without rushing to fill it, we discover its secret, that in the vastness of nothing, everything already waits. When the mind loosens its grip and the heart releases its chains, something extraordinary begins to happen. Life itself takes the lead. The sages of the Tao called this Wu Wei, effortless action, the art of moving with the current instead of against it. It is not passivity nor laziness, but a surrender so profound that our actions arise from the rhythm of the cosmos rather than the struggle of our will. The river does not force itself to the sea, yet it always arrives. Picture yourself standing beside a wide river. Its waters curve around stones, bend through valleys, and cascade into falls, never hurried, never hesitant. And yet, through all obstacles, it finds its way. This is the way of the universe. It accomplishes everything without strain, without violence, through alignment rather than force. When we stop clutching at control, we too become like the river, resilient, graceful, unstoppable. Lao Tzu wrote, "The Tao does nothing, yet nothing is left undone." In those words is the invitation to trust. For how often have we exhausted ourselves chasing outcomes, only to find that when we released our obsession, the doors opened on their own. Life has a rhythm, a pulse beneath its surface. When we listen, when we allow ourselves to move to that silent music, the impossible begins to unfold with quiet precision. Rumi echoed the same truth when he said, "Don't move the way fear makes you move. Move the way love makes you move." Fear scrambles, clings, and drowns in the current. Love, however, trusts. Love surrenders to the flow, knowing that what is meant for us cannot be lost, and what is not meant for us cannot be forced. To move from love is to walk without anxiety, to act with clarity, to live without wasting our strength on resistance. This does not mean the path becomes without challenge. Stones will still break the water's surface. Storms will still rise. But in surrender, we learn to meet them with grace rather than struggle. We bend instead of breaking. We flow instead of fighting. And as the river teaches, even obstacles serve the journey, shaping the way forward. When we flow with the universe, life ceases to be a battle. It becomes a dance, where each step is guided by a rhythm greater than our own. There comes a moment when words fall silent, when striving fades, and the only voice left is the quiet whisper within. In that stillness, truth reveals itself, not as a thunderclap, not as revelation carved into stone, but as a soft unfolding, like dawn slowly lifting the veil of night. To reflect is not merely to think, but to sit long enough with life that it begins to speak back. Imagine yourself by a lake at twilight. The water is calm, so calm it mirrors the heavens above. Stars flicker on its surface as though the universe has descended to meet you. The slightest ripple distorts the image, reminding you how easily desire, fear, and restlessness disturb the reflection. Yet when you allow the surface to return to stillness, the stars appear once more. The cosmos has always been there. It is the mind that must learn to be quiet enough to see it. In this place of reflection, we begin to ask questions that matter. What am I holding on to that no longer serves me? What burdens weigh me down beneath their illusion of necessity? These are not idle curiosities, but keys, each unlocking the doors we ourselves have built. The moment we dare to release them, to let them drift like leaves carried by the wind, we discover a lightness that had been with us all along, hidden beneath the clutter of our grasping. Stillness is not emptiness in the sense of void. It is fullness in disguise. For in quiet, we hear the rhythm of our own breath, the pulse of the earth beneath our feet, the vast silence of the sky stretching overhead. And in that awareness, we recognize that we are not separate, not lost, not broken. We are already part of the great unfolding, already carried by its invisible tide. Reflection is not the end of the path, but the clearing that allows us to see where we are. It is a mirror polished by surrender, where both our wounds and our wonders are revealed. And in that vision, we begin to understand that life has never withheld its abundance from us. It is we who, in our noise and grasping, closed ourselves off. Now, in stillness, the gate stands open. The universe waits with arms unbound. There is a quiet power in letting go, a rhythm older than time, woven into the very fabric of existence. To release is not to lose. It is to step into a dance where every motion is guided by something greater than the self. Imagine a leaf falling from a tree in autumn. It does not resist the wind, does not clutch at the branch, does not mourn what has ended. It simply surrenders, and in surrender, it discovers flight. Our lives, too, are filled with branches we cling to, expectations, identities, relationships, desires that once nourished us, but now weigh heavy upon the soul. We grasp them tightly, fearing that without them, we will collapse into emptiness. Yet it is precisely by releasing these branches that we awaken to the spaciousness of life, to the unseen currents carrying us forward. What we thought was emptiness becomes abundance. What we feared as loss becomes liberation. Think of a river meeting a stone. The water does not resist, does not rage endlessly against the immovable. It bends, flows around, finds another way. Its strength is not in force, but in yielding. Over time, even the hardest rock is shaped by this gentle persistence. So too are we transformed not by endless struggle, but by the grace of surrender. In our yielding, we discover resilience. In our release, we uncover strength. The dance of release is not passive. It is alive, dynamic, pulsing with mystery. Each time we let go, we step deeper into the music of the universe. Each release is a turning, a bow, a gesture of trust. And though the steps may feel unfamiliar at first, we find that the music has always been there, guiding us, calling us into harmony. To release is to trust that what departs was never truly ours to hold, and what remains is exactly what we need. It is to stand in the open field of being with empty hands, only to discover that the universe rushes to fill them. And in that moment, the dance is complete. Not because we gained, not because we clutched, but because we allowed ourselves to be moved by the eternal rhythm of life. Beyond the noise of wanting, beyond the endless clamor of thoughts that whisper, more, 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 lies a silence so profound it feels like the heartbeat of eternity. This silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of truth, a space where the soul finally remembers its origin. In this silence, the questions we carry dissolve, and what remains is a stillness vast enough to cradle the universe. Picture a night sky far from the reach of cities, where the air is crisp and stars burn like silver fire across the heavens. The silence there is alive, not empty, but filled with the quiet hum of infinity. It is the same silence that lives within us, though we often bury it beneath the noise of our striving. Yet when we fall into it, when we give ourselves over to its depth, we realize that this silence is not foreign, but home. The sages and mystics knew this well. They spoke of stillness as the threshold to the divine, the place where the soul and the cosmos meet. For in silence, the walls of separation crumble. The self, with all its hungers and fears, loosens its grip, and what is left is a clarity brighter than the sun. The silence does not ask us to achieve. It invites us to remember, and in remembering, everything shifts. The burdens of the past fade like shadows at dawn, and the anxieties of the future lose their power. What remains is the eternal present, vast, unyielding, and unbroken. Here, we discover that we are not empty vessels scrambling to be filled, but radiant beings already brimming with light. The sacred silence is not something we must find. It is already here, waiting beneath the surface of our noise, beneath the turbulence of our desire. To enter it is to return to the source, to step into the infinite without fear. It is here, in this silence, that needing nothing reveals itself as having everything. For the silence does not take, it gives. It gives peace, it gives clarity, it gives us back to ourselves. Desire is a restless mirror, always reflecting what we do not yet hold, always whispering that the horizon hides something greater. It pulls us forward with shimmering promises, yet the closer we reach, the farther it drifts. Like a mirage in the desert, desire keeps us walking, thirsting, convinced that fulfillment lies just one step beyond. But the mirror lies, for it shows only absence, never presence. Imagine standing before such a mirror. At first, it dazzles, filled with visions of what you think you need: wealth, love, recognition, control. But as you gaze deeper, the images shift like smoke, never staying, never satisfying. And if you dare to look long enough, you will see that the mirror does not reflect the world at all. It reflects your own hunger. The illusions are not outside of you. They are born from within. To break free, you must turn from the mirror. To turn is not to deny desire, but to see through its illusion. What we chase so desperately is never the object itself, but the feeling we imagine it will bring. Peace, joy, wholeness. These are not hidden in the future. They live now, within us. When we turn away from the mirror, we find the source of longing has always been inside, disguised as absence, but truly fullness waiting to be noticed. The mystics teach that the mirror of desire is both a trap and a teacher. It entangles us in illusion, but it also reveals where we are bound. Each desire is a thread, and by following it inward, we discover not the thing we seek, but the wound that seeks it. To heal the wound is to dissolve the illusion. To dissolve the illusion is to awaken. And in awakening, the mirror shatters, leaving only clear light. In that light, you stand whole, no longer seduced by reflections, no longer enslaved by longing. You see that what you once chased was never outside of you at all. It was the soul calling you inward, urging you to return to the wellspring of your own being. And there, in the quiet clarity beyond the mirror, you discover the truth. Needing nothing, you already possess everything. There comes a point when words grow heavy, when even the mind grows weary of its constant pursuit. Beyond that threshold lies silence, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of completion. It is the stillness after the storm, the quiet that follows a song when its final note lingers in the air. This silence does not ask, does not demand, does not chase. It simply is, and in its presence, all striving falls away. Close your eyes. and imagine yourself walking through a dense forest at dusk. The path has twisted endlessly, your legs ache, your breath is shallow. Yet suddenly, the trees part, and you find yourself standing before a vast clearing bathed in moonlight. The struggle to reach this place dissolves in an instant. You no longer ask where the path leads or what waits beyond. You are simply here, and here is enough. Such is the silence that arises when striving ends. The great mystics have always pointed to this silence as the gateway. Rumi whispered, "Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation." The Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, not chasing enlightenment, but sinking into the stillness that revealed it. Even the desert fathers, alone in barren lands, discovered that the deepest revelations arrive not through effort, but through surrender to the hush between thoughts. In this silence, the self is not erased, but dissolved into something vaster. It is as though you are no longer a drop in the ocean, but the ocean in a drop, limitless, unbound. The old fears of loss, of failure, of insufficiency melt like shadows before the dawn. For in the silence, you realize there is nothing to lose, nothing to win, nothing missing at all. And so, you sit. The world still spins, seasons still turn, rivers still flow, but you no longer fight their currents. You are carried effortlessly, like a leaf on water, surrendered, whole. And in that surrender, life ceases to be a battlefield of striving and becomes instead a symphony of presence. This is the silence beyond striving, where the soul remembers what the world forgets, that all we seek was never outside us, but waiting in the stillness all along. As every journey must, this one bends back upon itself, returning us to the place from which we began. Yet we are not the same as when we first set out. Like the traveler who circled the desert only to find the oasis within, we discover that the end of the path is simply the beginning seen with clearer eyes. The paradox remains. By needing nothing, we receive everything. But now, these words no longer feel like a riddle. They echo as lived truth, resonating in the marrow of our being. Picture the cycle of the moon as it wanes into darkness, only to be reborn in radiant fullness. Such is the rhythm of the soul, emptiness leading to fullness, surrender, opening to abundance. We are reminded that life itself is a great returning, breath drawn in, breath released, tides rising and falling, stars burning and dimming, each moment dissolving into the next. To resist this cycle is to suffer. To flow with it is to awaken. The ancients knew this well. The Tao speaks of the eternal way, where emptiness is not a void, but the mother of all things. The Sufis spoke of fana, the dissolution of the self, not as death, but as union with the infinite beloved. Christian mystics whispered of kenosis, the self-emptying that makes room for divine fullness. Each tradition, though clothed in different words, draws us to the same horizon, to let go, to trust, to enter the silence where all is already whole. Now imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast ocean at dawn. The waves roll endlessly, each one rising, each one falling, none clinging to its form. You place your feet in the water and feel the pull of the tide. It does not demand, it does not bargain. It simply invites you to surrender, to step deeper, to be carried. You realize then that life is this ocean, vast and infinite, and you are not apart from it. You are it. So the teaching comes full circle. The freedom you sought by chasing, the peace you imagined lay hidden in distant futures. All of it was here, waiting for the moment you stopped grasping. By emptying your hands, you found them full. By emptying your heart, you found it overflowing. And by emptying yourself, you discovered you were never empty at all. You were always whole, always enough, always held by the silent abundance of the universe. Thus, the journey ends, and yet it never ends. For every breath is another beginning, another chance to surrender, another chance to live the truth. By needing nothing, you walk through the world already complete. And in that wholeness, everything comes, not as a prize won, but as a gift always given. This is the eternal return, the great remembering, that you are the silence, the stillness, the abundance, the all. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when the noise of the world no longer captivates, when the restless hunt for more begins to wither like leaves in the fading light of autumn. In that silence, something awakens, not as a thunderclap, not as a blaze of triumph, but as a soft, imperceptible revolution within. It begins as a faint stirring, like the whisper of wind through ancient ruins, carrying the fragrance of forgotten truths. You notice that the things you once clung to, the trophies and the battles, no longer possess the weight they once held. They fall away like dust brushed from a statue, revealing the form beneath, timeless, unbroken, whole. This revolution is not waged with weapons, nor won with conquest. It is the victory of release, the triumph of stillness over striving. In this quiet uprising, the heart finds its throne. No longer a servant to fear or craving, it begins to radiate a sovereignty untouched by circumstance. The world may still spin with its ceaseless demands, its endless calls for your allegiance, but you are no longer its captive. Instead, you stand as a witness, not above the world, but deeply within it, like a mountain rooted through storms. Each breath becomes an act of rebellion against the tyranny of grasping, each moment of surrender a proclamation of freedom. This is not the revolt of chaos, but of harmony, the realization that true power lies not in control, but in allowing yourself to be carried by the current of life. Imagine walking through a marketplace of endless distractions where voices cry out for your attention, each promising happiness if only you purchase their wares. But instead of buying into their illusions, you walk in silence. You carry nothing, yet you lack nothing. The noise begins to fade until it is as distant as an echo from another world. What remains is the steady beat of your own being, a rhythm that does not waver with fortune or failure. This too is revolution, not rejecting the world, but refusing to let it dictate your worth. The heart, unburdened, becomes a vessel vast enough to contain the sky itself. The mystics have always known this secret. They spoke of it in parables and poems, cloaking it in symbols for those with eyes to see. To them, surrender was never weakness. It was the highest act of courage. To need nothing was not poverty, but wealth beyond measure. The revolution they spoke of was not written in history's annals, for it unfolds not in kingdoms and empires, but in the quiet chambers of the soul. And it is there, in that hidden sanctuary, that one discovers the truth. The greatest transformation is not when the world changes around you, but when the self awakens to its eternal freedom within. The silent revolution is not loud, not visible, not celebrated by crowds, yet it changes everything. Like dawn breaking over a battlefield, it turns sorrow into stillness, fear into trust, and longing into fullness. It is the revolution of needing nothing, and in that needlessness, receiving everything. It begins not with shouts or banners, but with a single breath, a single surrender. And once it begins, it spreads like fire through dry grass, consuming illusions until only truth remains. At the end of the journey, there is no grand finale, no thunderous applause, no crown to be placed upon the head of the seeker. There is only stillness, vast, eternal, unshaken. It greets you not as a stranger, but as something you have always known, like the quiet embrace of night after the long glare of day. In this stillness, you realize that the path was never about arriving somewhere new, but about remembering what had been within you all along. The paradox unfolds fully. By releasing your grip, you have been given everything. By needing nothing, you have discovered the fullness of life itself. Here, in this silence, abundance ceases to be measured by possessions or achievements. Instead, it is felt as the sheer depth of presence, the ability to sit beneath the open sky and know you are already complete. The trees no longer need to bloom for you to recognize beauty. The river no longer needs to flow for you to feel life's movement. You see that everything external was only a mirror, and what you longed for was always the reflection of your own wholeness. The gift of stillness is not that it offers you something new, but that it strips away all that is false until only truth remains. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast ocean at dusk. The waves rise and fall, indifferent to your desires, yet perfectly attuned to the rhythm of the universe. The horizon stretches endlessly, not promising answers, but offering presence. And in that presence, your heart rests. You no longer ask, "What do I need? What must I chase?" Instead, the questions dissolve into the rhythm of the tide, and you feel the peace of being carried by something infinite. This is the gift of stillness, the ocean within, reflecting eternity. The sages, the mystics, the wanderers who came before you all pointed to this same truth. They clothed it in poetry, wrapped it in stories, whispered it in parables. And now, you have walked that same path. Their words are no longer distant echoes, but living currents moving through your own breath. The wisdom of needing nothing is not theory, not philosophy, but experience. It is the living revolution within your being, the flame that burns quietly, yet eternally. So take this stillness with you. Let it walk beside you in crowded streets. Let it anchor you in storms. Let it remind you of who you are when the world demands you forget. Do not mistake its silence for weakness, nor its gentleness for passivity. For in its quiet power lies the force that shapes mountains, the tide that carves coastlines, the breath that animates creation. This is the final gift, not more, but less. Not striving, but surrender. Not needing, but being. And in that being, you discover the greatest abundance of all. And so the journey closes, not with an ending, but with an opening. A doorway into the infinite, a return to what has always been. The paradox is complete. By needing nothing, you have received everything. And in the stillness, you are finally home.